educational and promotional purposes. All right. So yeah, let's begin with a round of short check-ins. So you may take up to 30 seconds to share any comments, questions, etc. that you have from the last session. Or you may tell us how your empathy buddy call went, or you may also talk about how facilitating an empathy circle, if you did, felt in your experiences from that. Right? So 30 seconds, and I'll call on people so that it's faster. Yeah. Shannon, would you like to begin?
Sure, my pleasure. Hi everyone again. Good to see everyone. I had a great buddy call this week with Celine. It was pretty awesome, and we were able to get some empathy circle or just at least some active listening in and take turns speaking. So that was really wonderful and appreciative. So that was kind of my chance at doing an empathy circle. I wasn't able to get a group together of 3 other people to do that, but did kind of start to consider some of the challenges of facilitating. And just one thing that had occurred to me as a challenge is how it's difficult sometimes to reflect back what's most important to the speaker. Sometimes it's difficult to know exactly what that is. And as a facilitator, to kind of watch that happen, to watch like a speaker say something that seems important to them and not have that kind of reflected back. And so that's something I've been playing around with in my mind and would be curious to hear if anyone else has thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for your question as well, which we'll be discussing, hopefully, as we move.
Cool.
Tiffany?
Oh, hi, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. What I'd like to reflect on my one-on-one buddy call with Kathy this week. It's always a pleasure to speak with a therapist, because I guess they're already so skilled in empathy. And so she was really able to just be like an excellent guide for me. And for the first time in a long time, I used the words, "I'm proud of myself," for something, which Ralph, my other buddy from last week, was like, instead of being so critical, pick out something you really appreciate about in your growth. So thanks to Ralph and thanks to Kathy for listening. It was a good buddy call this week.
Thank you, Tiffany. Ralph?
I didn't have my buddy call this week to Saudi Arabia, but I'm in touch with my buddy. I couldn't arrange it because, not to worry anybody, but my son was in an accident. He's still in the hospital, but he's doing fine. But I did have a chance to use what grew in me over these past couple of months of training as I dealt with doctors, ambulance drivers, police, and I did what I called guerrilla empathy circles with them, and kept using the empathy circle techniques to draw them back to the present and make sure that we were being heard rather than sloughed off. And there's a lot you can be proud of, Tiffany.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Ralph. Stephen?
Hi, everyone. It's been quite a challenge just to be able to make this call. I'm traveling. I'm in a different time zone. I'm in a hotel way past checkout time. I had to really negotiate just to be able to be here. So here I am. Similar snafus with my empathy buddy this week, but we did manage to meet for a few minutes, and it was great. And that's me for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Jackie?
Hello. I was quite inspired after last week's class. I felt very in touch with the energy of compassion, and my appreciation of this course started to bloom. And I had a beautiful call with Michelle, I think yesterday. Yeah, that's me.
All right, thank you. Martina?
I had some big empathy circle topics come up this week. You guys probably read the thread in the LinkedIn with my question around that. A lot of topics came up. I had a discussion, empathy call with Raid the day after, which was very good. And just the topics of when there's someone having a problem, are other people going to go deep, or are other people in the circle just going to stay shallow so they can hold space? Or also my judgment in terms of judging the empathy circles, kind of like this. I'm not trying to do this, but I'm just aware of noticing different patterns with different people, and just kind of trying to have a safe space. What does that mean? And just a lot of topics came up that I thought were very deep. So I just thank Raid for listening and being there for me on Tuesday, and bringing some of these up to the surface.
Thank you, Martina. Linda?
I did not do an empathy circle, and that was on me. I just kept putting it off. But I had a great buddy call with Graham. It was a combination of emphatic hearing and just connecting on a personal level. And it was really, it was good. It was enlightening, and it couldn't have been better.
Glad to hear that, Linda. Ryan?
Hey, good morning. So I met actually with Martina and Al-Jazi from this group. We had a great experience. We didn't do the 15 minutes by 15 minutes. Instead, we did the 3 minutes drill. And that kept us connected, and we went into multiple areas, some deep, some not. Overall, I believe the experience was great, and I thank both Al-Jazi and Martina for being there.
Thank you, Rad. Kevin?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I was able to do the buddy circle with Michelle. It was really interesting. Again, I think the conversation came up again. What is the definition of a safe place? Or are we just being shallow? And are we also being sometimes critical, but not really, the true purpose or a different purpose, which came up in our conversation, was very interesting. I also was able to do it with my family, with my wife and my daughter. I'm not good at it with them. I'm sorry. It's like, all I got was, Daddy, you're not listening. So that needs a lot more work, because it's usually Daddy's way. So it's a work in progress, definitely. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kevin. Al-Jazi?
Hello. So yes, I actually had the buddy call with Ed. So I feel great about the call. And as he mentioned, we did the 3 minute. We did do 50 minutes, 50 minutes. I think that helped it more to have a conversation and build connection. So yeah, I actually feel great about it because I managed to share or talk about myself for the first time in the Empathy Circle. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, Francesca?
I'm just having something to eat. Sorry, I'm gonna use my. Yeah, so I had a call with Graham. Graham and I kind of got together and did some sharing, empathy sharing, and that was great. I never got together with the buddy person. I was sorry, Linda. Linda and I were matched, and we couldn't seem to schedule our time together. But I'm hoping to catch up with her at some point. And I haven't done an empathy circle. I've got a lot going on right now with trying to find an apartment to live in. So I'm a little bit spaced out, but I really want, to continue on and, be part of all this. I think it's really important. It really helps to hold me. So thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yes, so I'm grateful to be here. I'm in a very tender place considering all the world events happening right now. I did some gardening this morning, that helped, but I'm just really grateful to be here. And I had a call with Tiffany. It was just delightful. And I was realizing that in this era of COVID, I don't meet a lot of new people, if anybody. So this is like really wonderful to be meeting new people, getting to know people. So yeah, it was a great call. Thank you, Tiffany.
All right. Graham?
Thank you, Rasha. I'm very happy to be here. I had two pre-planned or arranged empathy buddy sessions, and one with Linda and the other one was Dean. And the one with Linda was really actually very dynamic, and I'm not joking. And we connected. It was strange how we actually came to connect, but behind everything that Linda talked about, I could feel her heart. I could also see tears in her eyes occasionally. And it was just amazing connection. And I thank you so much, Linda. Dean left me vitalized, and I have a couple of ongoing empathy buddy sessions, and they are teaching me such a lot about communicating. And one of them is Francesca. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Linda. So I'm looking forward to today. Thank you. Thanks, Rasha.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I had a great buddy call with Michelle. I'm getting to know her more and more, and I really appreciate, that. That's yeah, and I've been participating in a lot of trainings and cafes and things like that, and I'm just really more and more the great unwashed, as H.L. Mencken said, are proving to be wonderful, wonderful people. So I proudly include myself as a member of the great unwashed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Michelle?
Thanks, Sasha. I was buddied with Bill from a cohort earlier this week, so yeah, it was really good to get the full story about the fire. I'd been curious, it was cool. But I had needed, like, the buddy call I had with Jax for this cohort was just at a timely, was just exactly at the right time, and I needed that kind of like deeper reset into source. And I just feel like that this movement is like a virtual crossroads for all the people doing good in the world. Like, like this, like, yeah, it was just this like deep compassionate presence that just like brought me back into a deeper place myself that I kind of thrown off balance from forever. And I was grateful for it since. I just, yeah, been feeling nourished from since. Thanks.
Yeah, Celine? Glad to have you. Yeah.
I apologize for my black background. It looks like I'm in a, I don't know, closet or something, but I don't know how to change that right now. So I have had the pleasure of being part of a Empathy Circle with a diverse and interesting group of people. And I had a really wonderful empathy buddy call with Shannon that I enjoyed very much. Scheduling was challenging and doing it was delightful. So thank you. I'm very glad to be here now.
Edwin?
Yeah, how am I doing? Feeling a little distracted. I've got all the breakout rooms here. I'm busy, you know, in the background, kind of organizing this, so it's distracted me a little bit. Excited to be here. We had a really good cafe yesterday, intro cafe, and I've been thinking of trying to hold some empathy circles with Afghanis, you know, especially it would be interesting to get the like the Taliban into an empathy circle. So if anybody wants to sort of connect around that, how do we try to organize it? We're trying to reach out to refugee organizations and stuff. So anyway, just always thinking of new ideas of how to kind of get the word out about empathy circles. And yeah, that's me.
All right, and from me, I had a wonderful call with Michelle. We were getting to know each other, and I truly greatly appreciate the time we got to spend together. And we had a very deep conversation about different things, just getting to know each other. My empathy buddy was Stephen. And unfortunately, it was my bad. I kind of scheduled the call for Wednesday evening, but in my head, it was Thursday. And because of that, you know, it was supposed to happen at the same time when we were having a separate call. So really sorry about that, but I'm glad that we still managed to catch up for, I think, around 15 minutes. And it was wonderful just talking to him. And I remember feeling really energized after the very short conversation. So I also had an empathy circle with the Global Shapers team in my locality. So that's a grassroots World Economic Forum initiative. So it was a good you know, circle, very, very inspiring circle. Yeah. And with that, I shall pass on the facilitation to Graham.
Thank you, Rasha. So my time here is a maximum of 5 minutes. I'm to talk about some of the questions that were asked in the feedback forms. And one of them is how to make it safe for example, a traumatized sharer, and how to make it safe for the group. And so we touch on some of the areas that Dietmar has raised and Tiffany. And so the first general idea is to keep to the process. Don't allow the change of tone or distress that you hear to ruffle the shape of the group. Not too much anyway. You've got to be sensitive. But the best advice is to help slow down the tempo of the group, and try to do so without really directly interfering. But the idea is to help space the responses between the speaker and the listener. And then as we are moving from the speaker to the active listener, so as we're turning our cycles through, ask the group to pause so that they can harvest, and without speaking, but in silence, just to harvest the atmosphere, and then slowly move on. So essentially try to slow things down. And then of course, have as a reserve things like external contacts where people may go for help. So let's move on. The other one is, how do we shorten the empathy circle? Now, I'm assuming this question here is related to whatever you're doing in your home environment underneath your own auspices. You can always move your check-ins out to the breakout room. You can always move things like describing the empathy circle processes out to the breakout rooms. And if you've got those people who have announced early on that they're under time pressure, you can maybe stick them straight out into a breakout room. So there are various ways in which you can manage that. The next kind of questions are really almost everyday kind of questions for facilitators, like when somebody falls asleep in a circle, or when somebody is having a hard time being the active listener. If somebody falls asleep in the group, then this is really quite distracting for other people and needs to be addressed by the facilitator. For example, you can simply ask them to realize that their responsibility is to actually be with the group. Be very gentle about it, be supportive. You could also ask them to turn their camera off so it's not quite so distressing, and say, we'll come back to you when you've turned your camera on. Alternatively, you need to bite the bullet and ask them if it's more appropriate for them to leave, but still leave them to have the final decision. If somebody's having a hard time being the active listener, it depends what you mean by having a hard time. If they're having difficulty reflecting because they're nervous maybe, then as a facilitator, you could actually, when it's your turn to be the speaker, you could then use them as the active listener and then model some flexibility, like the speaker talking in very short chunks, and maybe asking the listener to just venture with their best guess as to what's being said. So in other words, ease them through the process. The other one is, another question is, will I be able to have a silent moment instead of talking? Absolutely. As the speaker, you're entitled to do that. It might be an idea as the speaker to actually say, can I just be quiet for a minute so that people understand what's going on? But yes, that's your choice. You can use your whole 5 minutes if you like in silence. That may be pushing it, but that's your right. And I think of somebody who's shared this before, I need to learn to be resilient after criticism. And yes, there's some sad thoughts behind that, but the idea is that we're trying to provide a very safe space. And do not feel that it's painful when you're criticized. Anyway, so I'm getting stuck on that one. I now pass it on to Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thanks, Graham. So we're about to go to our breakout rooms, and we're going to get to practice this week with challenges. And the context for our challenges is going to be that we're practicing with people that might not be familiar with the practice. So you can choose 4 levels of challenge, like no challenge, like low, medium, and then high. And you like really, if you don't feel ready to do your challenges, you don't have to do them, like, you know, or any aspect of it. It's like we're here to support you in your facilitation journey. So it's you can choose what you'd like. The outline that's been proposed, what's in mind, is we'll do our introductions again, and you can choose any topic you like, and timing will be 3 minutes, and facilitator will be the first listener, and then if you can remember, we'll leave 5 minutes at the end for the debrief. Yeah. So yeah, and then we'll repeat for each of the participants.
Okay, so we're ready to go into the breakout rooms. We'll have, yeah, Graham.
I'd like to know, or may I ask, when exactly do you plan on us being brought back into the main room?
It will have an hour and a half.
And so at 5 minutes to the hour, you'll bring us
Oh,
back.
it'll be the top of the hour, and I'll send. I'll try to send a 10-minute warning to the broadcast to all.
Super, thank you.
So, so the rooms, just with the amount of people, Graham will facilitate one, and let's see, Rasha will facilitate one, Michelle will facilitate one, and Bill, you'll be in with Michelle, just as sort of a support, sort of a backup. Then Celine will facilitate one, and I'll be with you, Graham, just as sort of a extra person.
Thank you. Okay.
And we'll stay in this room here. I think we're all set. Let's see, is there when venting? Okay, but there's a question there. You could make a note of it in the chat too, Graham, for looks like a future question. Oh, and the topic, yeah, you already said that. I just want to reiterate that if you're just feeling like, hey, I'm feeling kind of stressed, you know, I'm not ready to take on a challenge. Just you can say, I don't want any challenge. I just want to facilitate an empathy circle. In some of the groups, people have come into it and it's like, oh, I just had all this stuff going on. Then I got all these challenges and it just kind of blew me away. So if you just are not comfortable, you just want a nice, pleasant, to facilitate a nice, pleasant circle, just choose 0 challenges. So yeah, Jackie,
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Celine.
We are doing intros today, or not? I thought we weren't.
We do. That's in the 4th. We don't do an intro. So you're facilitating a full circle from start to finish, introduction, set the topic, set the time limits, which is 3 minutes. You get to choose the topic as a facilitator. You facilitate, you get your challenges. Well, when you first start, you'll be getting, say, hey, I'd like a challenge of 0 or, you know, small, medium, large, or what do we have? Low, medium, high. And then, yeah, and then you get like a 5-minute feedback. And Jackie, was there a question?
Yeah. Who's giving the challenge?
Oh, and only the facilitator is giving, I mean, the room facilitator, and that will be in one group, Celine, in the other group, Michelle, in the other group, Rasha, and then it's the person that's holding the full room, and then Graham is the other. So you're not getting, not everybody's giving challenges, just one person is giving challenges. We don't want to overwhelm people at this stage. So you'll kind of know, you'll have sort of a hint of where the challenge is coming from. So I think, unless there's another question, we're off to our rooms. Here we go. So you should see a button to go to your room. And you can also message that. I did see that. You can send a message to me if you need support in your room. And this room is recorded, and this is sort of the wait room. So if people drop out and then come back in, they come back through this room. So just a little bit of a heads up that may happen.
Thank you, Edwin. And hello, Shannon. Hello, Martina. And hello, Kevin. So I'm facilitating the room today. And the idea is that there are 3 of us, Martina, Shannon, and Kevin, who will be doing the facilitation. And you'll have, in total, half an hour each, just a little bit less than half an hour each. And within that half an hour, there will be, excuse me, I'm just trying to get something here. We'll have 5 minutes for a roundup, harvesting whatever you've experienced and get some feedback. And don't forget, you need to briefly introduce the empathy circle process, state the topic, and then state how long we're going to be on each turn. And for our purposes, it needs to be 3 minutes. And then for each trainee facilitator, you need to say what kind of challenges you wish for. And let me tell you, I do not enjoy giving challenges. I absolutely do not. But I will try. I may enlist Edwin occasionally to help me, because Edwin is in his ideal role when it comes to challenges. But you need to actually be very clear about what kind of things you're in for. And if it's very high, your world's not going to fall apart. We're not really that brutal. But also, if you don't want any challenges and you feel your priority is just on facilitating the empathy circle and connecting, then that's your privilege. You do exactly, we'll follow exactly what you prescribe for us. Okay. And when I ask you to stop your round of facilitating, I'll do that. And then we'll go into harvesting.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So how do the challenges work? I feel unclear about that. So if I'm up as the facilitator and I say I'd like a moderate challenge, would I tell, I mean, how do you implement it?
Can I give you some examples?
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes a speaker talks for too long. And for example, I might talk without a break in it, trying to provoke you to sort of get in there and maybe do something like prompt a request to pause. Or I may add an opinion as a reflector. Instead of reflecting what you're saying, I might kind of introduce some aspect that hasn't actually been said and is not relevant.
Okay. But that would only come to bear when it's your turn to be the listener or the speaker. And at which point I would be challenged to intervene in the way that would be appropriate for a facilitator. Is that right?
You may not be the speaker or the listener at the time. Let's say, for example, Martina asks me to be the listener and you are the facilitator. And so Martina says something and I add my opinion. We are then essentially giving you an opportunity to work out how you're going to react to that kind of thing. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions, Martina, Kevin?
So when we choose our level of challenges, like, I guess, yeah, if we say 3, does that mean it's going to be 1 challenge on a level 3, or are there going to be 3 challenges?
If level 3 is the highest level, then it means that you could get endless challenges at the high level. I don't think it'll be as dramatic as that, because like I say, I'm not really, I'm not orientated towards making challenges. So I have to try very hard to make a challenge. I could enlist Edwin, and then that's when you have to be sort of buckled down kind of job. Any other questions? Okay, so let's go into action. Who's going to be the facilitator, the first one?
Ladies, well, I'll go first.
Okay, Kevin. So
3.
You've got around about 18 minutes to go. So off you go.
Do I ask for a level now?
He said Kevin asked for a level 3. I don't know if you heard that, Graham.
I did actually, but my mind went elsewhere. So you want a level 3, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
I accept.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Empathy Circle. My name is Kevin. I'm here as a facilitator. One of my challenges is to put out there, I tend to speak fast. So please let me know if I'm speaking too fast. And that's very important in reference to listening and also being a speaker. A lot of times as a speaker and a listener, you may speak too fast or you may speak too large in chunks. So you want to make sure you break that down so that your listener is able to listen and to be able to reflect back on what you're saying. Empathy circles are about listening and they're also about speaking, also about being present. So one person will be the speaker, one person will be the listener. The speaker will get 3 minutes and the listener will respond back and forth as the person pauses in between based on whatever's on your heart or whatever the challenge is. The idea is not to give an opinion, but to reflect back and to be present for that person as the listener. Speaker, you just speak and bounce back and forth. And then the turn, it changes over, the listener now becomes the speaker. Hope I'm getting this right. Any questions? So at the end of the day, it's about really enjoying this. Yes, Evan.
Oh, I had a question. Do we have some topic we're talking about, or we talk about whatever we're on our minds, or I just wondering what we're talking about here?
I mean, I guess that's where I got lost at in reference to me presenting or asking the challenge. Is that the topic, or is that?
You can set the topic. You can set any topic you want if you get to choose the topic.
Okay. So thank you. So as the speaker, you get to choose a topic, whatever's real with you at this moment, or you can bring a topic out that I'm thinking about at the moment. The climate of the world is one topic. It's just a choice, but you can always speak about what's on your mind or what's true with you at this moment or you're thinking about. So it's not really a sticking point, but the idea is to really be present and to really to listen to what's being said to you by the other person and the other person who's speaking. We hopefully that you can feel comfortable. You know, the definition comes about being a safe place. It's about being a true place. So who would like to go first?
And before you move on, you're talking about the topic is the climate of the world.
Climate of the world is the topic I gave, or what's on your heart, or what's true with you.
And is this a political topic or a climate change topic?
What's with the world is about what you perceive as it. So I don't want to guide you because it may be differently for every single person.
So you're saying whatever aspect I want to pick on that story.
Yes.
Okay, thank
you. I will be the listener. Is that correct? I'm always messing up. And who would like to be the speaker? Okay, Shannon?
Sure, yeah. Sorry, Martina, I saw you lean forward after
my apologies.
But sure, I'll go ahead and go. And I have 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. And again, I asked you if you can speak in small chunks, so I'm making sure I'm embracing what you're saying. Also, we are keeping time. So as the time goes, I will give up a signal which indicate time, which is like 30 seconds prior to it running out. You know, not to interrupt your flow, but hopefully I don't have my paper. So get my clock ready and you may begin.
All right, thank you. I don't really know I have nothing planned in terms of the topic, but what is on my heart or in my mind should be, I guess right now, the state of my small world is like, I'm getting ready to go back to work as a teacher. And so that's most on my mind right now in my world, but going beyond that, it's hard to see beyond that. I think anxiety kind of closes our world, makes it smaller. So I'll stop there.
So in the beginning, it really wasn't much on your mind in reference to, a topic, but as you progress and spoke on it, you really start talking about, going back to work. That is the impact of your world and how to, I guess, perceive that. And I'm not trying to put words in, just trying to embrace.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I said. And so sort of that's the state of my mind right now. And I had added that anxiety can kind of, give us tunnel vision. But usually I am actually thinking a lot about the state of the world because it's so important right now, and it's so it's such an evocative topic for so many people, regardless of where you lie on the political spectrum or your views. Most people are feeling pretty strongly about the state of affairs. And I think that is difficult to cope with in a way that's not easy to put it to words, that it can feel like a lot of pressure from all sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, even with this topic, there's a lot of anxiety just in the world, or in your world, as you say, in your pocket. But with political views, there are a lot of topics. They are constantly affecting you and everybody else around you, and it's just different. Now, and that kind of like may lead to more anxiety as you lead to go back to work, and how the political climate or everyone else may look at it. And I apologize if I've missed too much. And I ask again if you can just do smaller chunks.
Oh, smaller, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd like to pause for a second, if I may. Is it 3 minutes I'm working with, or is it, because that was 3 minutes and
3 minutes.
Oh.
Woo, that was that goes.
Thank you, Kevin.
My apology. I'm trying to do the facilitate in, like.
You did great, and I did feel very heard. So thank you.
Okay, and I apologize for the interruption.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now it's your turn.
Okay.
To pick the next person.
Sure.
Yes.
Correction.
Okay.
The listener.
Oh.
The listener is the next speaker. So
I
it's
keep getting that.
your turn, Kevin.
Okay, so it's my turn to speak as a listener. Okay, I'm working on that mapping piece in my head. Okay, Martina, would you mind listening?
Yes, I will.
And I got it right after this. I guess my topic would be the world, in reference to not only the Americans who are at war or coming out of war, how that's affecting everything in reference to our political circle, but also in reference to so many, and I apologize for two topics within one, but they're all the same to me. Going back to work, in reference to the children, the next variant, where are we going to be at? It's kind of really heavy to think about.
Okay, so this topic about the state of the world, some of the issues that you brought to the surface are people that are going to war, coming out of war, people going back to school, people going back to work. Those are some things that you've brought to the surface.
Yeah, and I guess for me, I'm chunking them as this transition. See, like right now, the world to me is in a flux of transition on various levels. From a pandemic to a large amount of Americans or people who are being affected by a tragedy in reference to a culture of that war piece, which I'm not very knowledgeable on. I'm catching like highlights. But then when I think about going back to work, one thing that just recently come, my CEO, we just announced as executive team that we are making it mandatory for vaccination.
Okay. So the topic of what's happening in the world seems to be summarized by you as transitions. The whole pandemic thing, people going back to work and school. And it seems like there's a lot of changes everyone's going through. And one thing that you've noticed in your workplace is they're making the vaccine mandatory.
Mm-hmm. And I guess with the vaccine being mandatory, I understand it to a degree, or I sympathize with it. I don't know how to understand it. But we're ready to take away people's choice, but then it's a health risk that's been perceived or given us to us that we've seen a lot of people who pass. And so I have to work with the challenge of working with people who say, I don't want to do it, and I have a religious purpose versus I have a medical reason. And that's going to be where my platform is going to be going into October. And it's going to be very interesting to be professional, empathetic, but also follow some guidelines.
So you're mentally trying to prepare yourself because it seems to be with your job, you're going to be working with people that are going to have, for various reasons, some things that they're against the vaccine for, whether it be for religious reasons or health reasons. And so how are you going to be empathetic with them?
Right.
And deal with this?
Because our bottom, I guess I'm hearing again, our bottom line is that employees or individuals that are associated with the organization have a choice to either work with us or move to the next, which is very interesting in the field I work in. Everyone is moving in that same direction. So even if you resign or decide to leave, you're going to another organization that's pretty much putting the same thing in place. So I almost feel like we're taking a higher level on a global scope again of bullying and harassing.
So yeah, so say someone decides that they don't want to work for this organization, they could go somewhere else, but it's probably going to be the same thing. So it's almost like there's this bullying and harassing pattern going on in organizations.
Right. And I guess that's my time, and I feel fully heard. This 3 minutes is I'm sorry. So Michelle, it's now your turn as being a listener to pick the next person.
Yep, Martina.
Martina, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was doing good in the beginning.
A lot of people get my name wrong. It happens a lot. Okay. Graham, would you be my listener?
Yeah, my pleasure, Martina. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I really think that the problems going on in the world right now are providing everyone an opportunity to grow. And so a lot of people around me are freaking out about things that are happening, and I'm not, and I'm one of the only ones.
And so, Martina, as you began, you paused and reflected on what you were going to say. And you then went on to say that there's a lot happening in the world, and it's happening in a way which is where other people are freaking out, I think you said. And I am actually getting, I connected with what you said, but I've lost it. But they are freaking out, and you feel that this is an opportunity to gather themselves together. And this is not having that effect on you. This is actually making you feel anchored.
Sorry. No, I did not say that, actually. But I did. I'm not angry at those people. I'm just noticing that I'm having a different experience than a lot of people. And I'm in a position where I am mostly focused on what's in front of me instead of worrying about what's happening to other people and the rest of the world. And it sounds very selfish, but I'm
gonna ask you to pause then to allow for Graham just to grab smaller chunks to be able to work with you.
Thank you, Kevin. Martina, you corrected me, and you said that you're not frustrated or angry with those people who are being upset by what's going on in the world. It's having a very different effect on you. And I'm collapsing, actually. I'm sorry.
Okay, and that's okay. I'm gonna call time now. It's been 3 minutes. Martina, do you feel hurt? And I empathize with you.
Yes, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
And I thank you for that. Graham, it's your turn as the listener. And again, I'll ask everybody to remember to do smaller pieces. It's really very important to be present for the person. And if it's getting a lot of information, just let them know, it's okay to say pause because it's a lot going on with you personally, and you want to make sure we're grabbing the smaller pieces, and that's why I preference that to allow for a good reflection. So Graham, you're now the speaker, and you can pick your listener by doing it right.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
Edwin, would you be so kind and be my listener?
Sure.
Thank you. I apologize to the group that I wasn't able to reflect Martina's work, what Martina was sharing, and that leaves me in an uncomfortable spot.
You're apologizing that you weren't able to reflect what Martina was saying, and you just feel uncomfortable. You're kind of in an uncomfortable place because of that.
Yes, and though I didn't reflect, I feel I connected with pretty much everything that Martina had actually said.
You feel that you sort of connected with what Martina was saying, even though you weren't able to reflect it.
That's correct. And for example, I don't have a radio in my apartment. I don't have a television. I'm not interested in the hype that keeps floating through across those airwaves. I shut that out.
Yeah, so you're just showing how you relate to what Martina said, because you kind of shut out all the stuff on the news. You just don't sort of take it in.
Yeah, and I shut it out because they grab you and they just keep shaking you and shaking you and shaking. And I just don't want it in my life.
So you feel like the media is just sort of grabbing your attention and just kind of shaking you around, and you just don't want to support that.
Absolutely. And I think there's way more to attend to, like whatever's in front of me. Like, for example, this little group. This is where my priorities are.
So like Martina, you just focus on what's in front of you, and right now this group is in front of you, and so this is what you focus on.
That's right. And once again, this is not selfish. This is, and I wouldn't call it a survival mode either. It's a strategy for productive engagement of whatever.
So you don't see this as like being selfish. You're seeing it as something that just is supporting your survival and well-being.
Yes, indeed. And we've heard from other people sharing that they're really upset by what's going on in Afghanistan. Well, turn the television on, you know.
So you're kind of giving advice to people who are worried about what's happening in Afghanistan. You're just saying, hey, you can turn the TV off and not look at it.
Exactly. And that leaves more
I think
energy
that was
for
the
them.
time too.
I'm sorry.
Saw
Yes,
that.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to get that paper together. Time. Great job, everyone. Graham, great job. I just want to take this moment again for the sensitivity of the subject that people may be feeling indifference of the conversation, and just do a check-in. Is everyone okay at this time with what's going on and being discussed? Because there are various views of opinions, and I've noticed that has manifested in this process here. Just checking in. Okay, so again, it's about a topic. It's about being a listener, and it's about having a voice to speak on. And be mindful that people will speak on your topic or add to it in their words, and that's okay. That's about being a speaker and a listener. Edwin, it's your turn now.
Okay, I'll speak to Shannon. Yeah, in terms of climate change and all of these issues, I always come back to empathy as being sort of the first step around it, because I see that the problem, so the core of every problem is a lack of empathy. So that's kind of where I put my focus.
Thank you, Edwin. So I heard you say that when you're thinking about topics such as kind of what's going on in the world, including climate change, your mind often goes back to empathy, and that surrounding these issues is a lack of empathy.
Yeah, so to design solutions for any problem, you have to have the parties be able to listen to each other and hear each other and be able to have constructive dialogue. So if it's around climate change, we got to get the different parties to be able to sit down and talk to each other and hear each other and understand each other. And so that's what empathy, where empathy comes in.
So what I hear you saying is that with topics like this, climate change, for example, where the solution lies is actually hearing the different perspectives and having people sit down and actually listen to one another.
It's the same with the Afghan situation. It's sort of like an empathy deficit there. For me, it's like bring all the parties together instead of going in there like the America did with, trying to dominate the whole situation, is go in with empathy circles. It's like, hey, let's bring the Taliban together with the other parties and be nurturing this dialogue. And because no problem is going to get solved unless all the parties have a voice in it, and we just see the outcome of it. $1 trillion later, this huge failure. Total failure of American policy.
So what you're saying is that this is the same with the situation in the Afghan situation, is that this can be a solution, can be kind of arrived at by bringing the different parties together. And that way you don't have just one voice kind of dominating the situation, but you can actually nurture a dialogue so that you can kind of come to a better solution, other than just kind of seeing something come about later where you had no idea what the different parties' views were.
Yeah, and it's also teaching the means are the end. So if we want to empathic, Afghanistan, you got to use empathic means. It's like, $1 trillion worth of military support is just going to create more military outcome. So if you want to have a culture of empathy in Afghanistan, the means are the end. So yeah, so kind of pissed off about the whole thing. It's like, come on, people, let's try something else here. You've tried this, for a century. Let's try something else.
Yeah, so you're pleading like, let's try for a different means so we can have a different end and not go down the same route with using all this trillions of military dollars in funding to get a military conclusion.
Yeah, I feel her. I think, that's my time too. Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. So let's now go into 5 minutes worth of harvesting and feedback on your experience, Kevin. So let us start with you, and we perhaps close with you. How do you feel about your experience?
I think I felt great. I think I was trying to hear everybody's voice, but to be present for the whole totality of the team that was here, so I can help to not only facilitate, but to mitigate what might have been being felt or heard, if that's possible. I felt okay with it.
That's good. And what was your response, Martina? And we're talking, let's separate responses. Can you talk about Kevin's facilitation and how you experienced his facilitation?
I enjoyed his leadership. I felt it was a safe place. I have a tendency to speak very fast. And so when he said, oh, I speak really fast, so apologize ahead of time, that kind of made me feel like more comfortable about my own fast speaking. So that just kind of like immediately I just kind of connected with him. And he also told Shannon right away, something I'm embracing what the speaker is saying. Like I'm embracing that instead of saying listening. I really like that word, embracing. It just seemed very safe. So I thought he did a great job.
Thank you, Martina. Shannon, what's your feedback?
I thought it was great. I especially sort of like Martina's talking about that phrase being so helpful. I found it helpful and actually comforting that you kept reminding people to speak in a little bit of smaller chunks, because I felt like it really brought a spirit of wanting to hear people, and that was a nice touch, I thought. And yeah, and yeah, to be able to kind of put some humility out there in the beginning, I felt like was helpful. Put my guard down for sure.
That's good. Thank you, Shanna. Edwin, what feedback have you got?
Yeah, it was, it felt the correction, there was a little bit of correction that you did there, and it just felt very comfortable, like seemed like you had a lot of care. I think that was with the, did make a note of it, it said, did a nice job of correction. So I think it was slowing people down, doing that again. And it's just that sense of care made me feel comfortable, like, oh, he's really trying to help. And so it made me feel comfortable. I did have one sort of a comment in terms of the topics you felt was getting sort of maybe challenging at some point, and you want to put people at ease. And then you broke out of the empathic listening process and sort of as a facilitator tried to keep space. One, I try to keep within the empathic listening, always, speaking, listening, that what I would have done a little differently is I would have waited till it was my turn to be the speaker. And then as facilitator, I might have said some comments like that to stay within the process, if that makes sense, so that you're not breaking out as, hey, I'm a facilitator, I have to save everybody, I have to keep you all, put you all at ease. And then you're sort of taking sort of the power at that point, and it sort of breaks out of the process that everyone's agreed to. But you can say all those things, and you may have to sort of break out like that, but at some point, depending on the situation. But if you can say it within the process, it kind of holds the process a little bit stronger. So that was my only comment about that. Otherwise, yeah, I felt very comfortable, and yeah, just felt very warm.
And may I, Kevin?
Yes, please.
Thank you for your facilitation. And yes, there's, you demonstrate an intention of being here for us as a group. And I thank you for that. There are a couple of observations though. One is that the more you talk, the more discussion you initiate. And in this case, there wasn't much responding to your talking for some of the reasons on our side, for example. But the more you talk, the more you invite responses from others, and you invite debate, etc. So keep your verbal interventions down to an absolute minimum. And I think you might hear more about the meaning of what I'm saying at later times as you gain more experience. The other one was when I collapsed with my listening role with Martina. This was very genuine. There was no theatrics. I was not setting any challenges for you, but I was acknowledging that I wasn't able to listen. And and you could see that I was very uncomfortable about it, and I was distressed. And under those circumstances, just leave the person alone, because they know what's going on. And when you intervene, you're perhaps adding fuel to the fire. So why don't we come back to this idea again? Let the process actually manage itself, because you'd be surprised how quickly it cycles into the pattern that you're actually ultimately seeking for. So we've been almost 30 minutes. How do you feel about the feedback that you've had, Kevin?
I definitely hear the feedback. I guess, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
where was the challenge at within, if you're saying not when you were not able to listen, when you was genuine? And so I saw that as part of a challenge, and my apologies. But I guess, and I'm speaking too much again.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. It wasn't actually a challenge. But then that's a valid confusion. So it wasn't a challenge, just for information. Edwin.
You didn't give any challenges, right? From what I was seeing, you gave no challenges. That was like a real experience that you were sort of losing your thread, but you didn't give any challenges. Is that correct?
I did actually,
okay.
Because around the topic, there were very mild challenges, but I was trying to keep him talking and initiating a debate about the topic.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
But that was really the only ones that I did.
Okay. I guess my question is in reference to my interruption, or was that not appropriate, or in reference to getting a sense of the group? Because maybe that was my internal empathic of feeling some tension, and not only just for anyone else in the group, but for myself, based on when someone falls out, or the experience that you had brought to the group at that time. How do you handle that without being taking away power, as you were saying earlier, that went and so forth?
We need to keep this short, Kevin.
Should I answer that real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Graham was saying the same thing, is try to do it within the process as much as possible. Is, stay within the empathic listening, like that. Those stresses that maybe are coming up would kind of work themselves out through the empathic listening. So kind of sort of trust the process, sort of stay with the process instead of pulling out and then trying to, assure people, because you were trying to assure people, trying to, make them feel comfortable. The thing is like Graham said it really well, is that when you try to break out of, if you step out of the process and try to assure people, that could open a whole can of worms, and the whole thing starts turning into just a discussion, this back and forth. And so you just want to, as much as possible, stay within the structure, because the structure will sort of work through any sort of discomfort or anxiety or whatever, that it itself kind of heals those concerns that you were trying to assuage. You're trying to make everyone feel comfortable. So we're getting kind of late here. I know the next person should come up. So I hope
thank
that
you,
was
Kevin.
helpful.
Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Please then fire away, Martina.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Empathy Circle. I'm so glad to have you all here. I'm just going to explain a little bit about the roles, and then we'll get right into practicing it. There's 4 roles in this process. The first is the active, is the speaker. And the speaker is going to speak for 3 minutes about whatever makes you feel alive, whatever is on your mind. And as you're speaking, you're going to choose someone to be your active listener. And so be sure to speak slowly and to pause every couple sentences or every few sentences, so that the active listener will be rephrasing what their person's saying to allow them to be fully heard. And then the new speaker the active listener will become the new speaker. And so we'll rotate around. And the other role is the silent listener. And you're just holding space and listening to what's being said, because it might spark something that makes you feel excited to share when it's your turn to be the speaker. And it also just allows the space to be held in a way that's safe. And the facilitator is my role, and I'll be keeping track of time. And when I do that, that means time's up, and just kind of wrap up on what you're saying. And I think that's it. So the best way is to do this is to just practice it. So is there anybody that would like to speak first? I will be the first listener.
Can I hold you, Martina? What level of challenges are you looking at?
I'll take a 3.
Okay, that sounds good. So thank you, Martina. Okay, can I be the speaker?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will be your listener, and I'll keep track of time for everybody. So I'm ready when you're ready.
Thank you. I had a buddy call with a lady. I'm sorry, I'm still feeling nervous from my last interaction, but I had a buddy call with a lady, and it was very, very interesting and very, very challenging. And I'll tell you about it roughly in a second.
Okay. So you're feeling a little nervous from your last interaction or last sharing. What you'd like to talk about now is the buddy call that you had, and it was very challenging.
Yes. And this person just asked questions all the time and also gave me advice in between.
So the person was asking you a lot of questions all the time and giving you advice in between.
Yes. And my posture was to be vulnerable and just allow things to happen, take all her questions as well-meaning, and to respond accordingly. And I'll stop there.
So your take on it was just to answer her questions and just take it as it comes and to be vulnerable.
Yes, indeed, exactly. And in between, you could see the emotion in this person, and that's what I was connecting with. And her questions were completely different, but I connected with the emotions.
So despite what she was saying, it wasn't really matching up with her emotions, and you really were connecting with her emotions.
I was, and I felt that this was just an amazingly generous woman. But her questions put up the front that she was frightened of herself, and she didn't trust herself. And that's the whole experience that I was gaining.
So your take was that she was a very generous person, but what she was saying didn't match that. She was having maybe some self-doubt.
Oh, big time. Like she didn't want anybody to get to know her, which is why she put all those questions out, firing the questions at me one after another.
All right, that's time. So the fact that she was asking so many questions was almost like a wall, preventing people from wanting to get to know her.
Yes, and if I may add my last closure on this one, we ended up saying to each other that we loved each other, and we'd only been in front of the camera for 30 minutes by that time.
Okay, so despite only being with each other for 30 minutes, you both said that you loved each other.
Absolutely. It was very, very touching, very connecting meeting.
It was a very, very connected, very touching meeting.
Yes, thank you, Martina. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I will be the next speaker, and Shannon, would you be my listener?
Yes, my pleasure.
I really liked a lot of things people were saying, and I liked what Graham was speaking about with his buddy call. The fact that he was seeing what was behind the words
I hear you saying that you're really liking hearing from people right now in general, but specifically what Graham was saying about the buddy call and the ability to hear what's behind the words, not just the words themselves.
Mm-hmm. Part of the whole reason I got interested in this empathy circle, it relates to the meditation practice that I do. And this practice is about being in your heart space.
So part of what drove you, your interest in the empathy circle to begin with is related to, did you say the yoga practice? The yoga
meditation.
Sorry, okay, I missed that one word. Meditation practice you do it because it's about staying in the heart center.
Yes, and we have a practice called heart centering, and it's something you do throughout the day. So you're in your heart space instead of in your mind. And I really see this empathy circle as a tremendous way to practice doing that.
So it reminds you of this specific exercise you do that's actually called heart centering, and you're kind of connecting that directly to this empathy practice.
Mm-hmm. And I just see it as a really good way for people that practice my style of meditation to have a place, a structure to practice being in their heart space.
So you, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You're just saying that this is another really good way for people that practice with you to be and to be in the heart space.
Mm-hmm. And I am finding that doing this practice is actually pulls me out of the heart sometimes, because I will go to my mind when I'm thinking about what people are saying and what I'm going to do to speak back. I find it extremely challenging to stay in my heart, which makes it all the more perfect avenue for practicing being in the heart space.
You're reflecting that it's interesting that even though you're thinking of this empathy circle as potentially helping everyone get to a heart space, that sometimes you find yourself going into your mind more and thinking about what to respond with rather than feeling, I guess, what to respond.
Thank you. That's my time. I feel fully heard. So Shannon, now you can choose your listener.
Great, thank you. Kevin, will you be my listener?
Yes. Thank you.
Great. So I'm just reflecting on all that's been said, and it's really wonderful to hear about people's efforts, sincere efforts to be more in contact with what is alive for them.
So right now you're just reflecting back on this whole process, and it's really seems very important that people are speaking about what is live with them.
Yeah, right. Getting more in touch with what's alive. I think in my work, I see people struggle with that. They are scared to get into contact with their heart or what's most alive for them for so many different reasons. And so it can take a lot of courage.
So, in your work, you see a lot of times where people aren't able to get in contact or to connect with their feelings, and you can see how this can be a very good avenue for that to manifest itself in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Thank you. And then I'm reflecting sort of on the importance of holding structure as a way of allowing that to happen. And I'm just feeling curious about that important intersection, that experience of being fully in your heart is so important and precious, but there has to be a certain structure in place for it to happen. And yeah.
So right now, it sounds like it's very important in reference to the structure, in reference to really being connecting with feelings in your heart, and then also a pathway that the rules or the structure in reference to where it could be laid out. sorry if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, but
Yeah. No, that's correct. That's the essence of what I was saying, and that different people and settings find different structures helpful. And I really like this empathy circle structure. But I imagine there's other ways too. So I think that might be.
You find that this empathy structure is very powerful. But you're sure there are other ways out there that people can also be heard. But this is a very good tool that you're being involved with.
Thank you, Kevin. I feel very heard.
Awesome. Graham, would you mind listening to me?
That'd be my pleasure, Kevin.
Okay. I guess I really don't have a topic, but I guess when I think about human relationship and empathy, it seems to be very important to me in reference to how to connect, and that's why I enjoy the circle, to connect with different people in different ways, to really be present for what that person is saying. It seems to be very powerful now, and I'm really enjoying Empathy Circle for that.
And you started off by saying you don't really have a topic, but then when you paused and reflected on that, you realized that aspects of human relations, like connecting with people and being present for people, like we do here in the Empathy Circle, is really inspiring and stimulating and valuable for you.
So I look at this as I think everyone's kind of saying as a nice tool for my toolbox to allow me to be more present with other people. And again, where else can I get a platform of total strangers that are kind of in the same mindset, at least, of connecting in so many regions, which is like, powerful. And I'm like, wow, this is better than school.
And you're saying on the one side, you're seeing this as another tool in your toolbox. And then you're beginning to sort of wonder at the idea, where else can you find such an amazing opportunity to connect with people who are so kind and supportive and heartfelt?
Right. So yeah, so I definitely, I think one of our homework assignments were, connecting with your own circle. And it just amazed me the challenge in reference to connecting with my own family. And to take myself out of the father, the daddy role, and to be an empathic listener, and to have my 5-year-old tell me, "You're not listening." I was like, okay, I get paid for this. I couldn't give it back in my own circle.
And you're, I sense you're amused by the difference between what you might experience here and the challenges you experience when you take the empathy circles into your family.
Yes.
And, I'm getting the idea, what I'm understanding is that you can bring the empathy circle to your children and your family generally. And then when you're not listening, when you're in daddy role, your children will tell you that you're not listening. And this is both a challenge and really amusing.
Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Kevin. Edwin, would you be so kind and be my listener?
Listening.
Sadly, I forget some of the words that Martina used, but she stirred something in me once again, and that's the idea that when I'm, and this is only very much now in the last few weeks that I've begun to discover how to do this. I'm sorry that I was all jumbled, Edwin, but that's what I wanted to say.
So there's something that's stirring in you from what Martina has said, and you're also apologizing that it's a little jumbled.
Yeah, that I was jumbled there. what I'm finding is that I must be vulnerable. And I know it's a command to myself to be vulnerable, but the idea is that if I'm vulnerable and I allow myself to receive anything that comes my way, then I can respond in a way which is always appropriate.
So you have an insight that if you remain vulnerable, be able to take in things that are said that's kind of appropriate. That's kind of what you want to do, is to have that vulnerability.
Yeah, and when I skip out of being vulnerable, I then fire off in the wrong directions, and I lose my frame of reference, appropriate frame of reference for being with other people.
Yeah, it's like when you don't stay with your vulnerability, you sort of lose your grounding or your perspective or frame of reference.
Yeah, and recently I've begun to realize that there are a couple of, let's say, forces or dimensions inside me which I'm trying to consciously use to direct my interaction with others. And one of them is the little boy inside me.
So you're trying to see how you can sort of stay grounded in your vulnerability, and one is to connect with this little boy inside of you. Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm saying, if I want to know how to interact with other people, I should ask that little boy, how would you like to be treated?
Yeah, so the way you can kind of connect with others is to sort of check with that voice of the little boy inside of you and say, how would you like to be treated? And that kind of will kind of guide you.
Indeed. And the other one is that...
Graham, sorry, that's your time up.
Thank you.
Do you feel fully heard?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll speak to Martina then.
And can I interrupt here, please? This is...
Oh, for the feedback.
Time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, feedback time.
Great.
So, Martina, how did you feel about facilitating that session?
Good. I thought it went well.
That's good. And how did you feel about your description of the empathy circle process?
I thought it was good. No, I was thinking, I got in my mind when somebody was talking that I had forgotten one of the things I like to say, which is more description of the active listener, not judging, not giving your opinion. I left that out. So, but other than that, I don't know if I felt like I might have gone a little fast, but I don't know.
Okay. And with the facilitations, how did you feel about doing them?
It seemed very easy. It seemed like it went well. Okay. I didn't feel anything uncomfortable. Was the challenge when you kept going over your time? Or no?
Martina, it was actually a challenge, but it wasn't a deliberate challenge.
Oh, okay.
But in hindsight, it certainly was a challenge. And
yeah.
Let me come back to that when we've been around all the other people, because that's about the only real challenge that was posed for you, I think anyway. So I'll come back later. Kevin, would you like to give some feedback?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Your introduction was to me on point. You got the flow in reference to the order, which is I'm challenged with myself. You definitely kept great time in reference to seem like your time came up clearer than mine. The good camera and that interruption was smooth. And I think I like the topic because it's like it was very organic. Like, I don't know if you gave the topic or everyone just flowed into a topic, which was to me was powerful in itself. So thank you.
Shannon.
I thought it was great that it felt very structured. It felt like it was really good scaffolding, because I know that sometimes after I listen, I feel very kind of like scooped up in the experience, and you very like gently were like, no, it's your turn to speak, and you can, you know, pick an active listener. And I really appreciated that. And then with other people that kind of did that on their own, you didn't say anything. And I thought that was a really just nice kind of a supportive role. And I didn't think you went too fast. You know, I mean, I didn't have that impression at all. So.
Edwin, thank you, Shannon. Edwin?
Yeah, the whole circle flowed, you know, just felt very comfortable. I think Graham needs a little bit more challenges there. You asked for a 3, which is like the whole thing kind of blows up. It's like that if you're asking for a high, this was about a point, you know, 5 or less, you know. So so that I'll just mention that. The one thing that did strike me is that when Graham was sharing, this is more about the listening, is, you know, he talked about his anxiety, and you sort of really reflected that. I just thought, wow, the reflections were so, you know, hitting the emotions that were shared. And so I was just like, oh, that's pretty good. I was like really impressed with the kind of reflecting those emotions. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the how-to, are you just doing it from memory, or do you have a list there or something? Just curious.
Just memory.
Okay. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Edwin. I do sincerely apologize for not giving you the challenges which you asked for. And I accept Edwin's criticism that I need to sort of bone that one up. But I say but. And I think I should have maybe got Edwin involved a little bit more, nudged him through the chat section to actually provoke you, because I am no good at setting challenges. So my apologies with a but. About the challenges which you did actually face, when I was sharing, I wanted to close off my thought. And so there were 2 speaking and response sections to actually complete that. And for me, as a trainer, Edwin may be may recommend differently, but you help build that connection by allowing people to actually speak through, rather than using the cut and dried bit. It's now finished, you know, your time's up, because otherwise you're going to leave people brutally hanging. So thank you for the first time I shared, for letting me go. And in this case, I was not deliberately challenging you, despite the challenge. But the second time, you cut me off. And I just want to draw your attention to the idea that it can have a brutal ending. And and if you want to do a brutal ending, there's some other ways in which it can be done. Like, for example, you can use your phone to put a little trill on it or something so that people hear it. And then if they go on too long, you could do that, for example. And that then softens everything.
Mm-hmm.
And allows a comfortable transition from one to another.
Sounds good. I'll have to do that piece of paper. I don't have that yet. Yeah.
That doesn't have to be sophisticated. And I think when you put the timer on, the timer actually goes after 3 minutes. It actually goes, it does an alarm bell. Okay. Are you happy with your feedback, Martina?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay. And so let's roar on to you, Shannon. And away
Just
you
a
go.
question you want me to do. You should assign me to do the challenges if you want. It shouldn't. Do you want me to do it, or do you want to?
How about you just at your own direction insert some challenges? I would really appreciate that. But Shannon, tell us what challenges you want.
I don't think I'm going to do challenges, but if that's all right, if I have that choice. Okay, cool. I just want a little more practice with the actual facilitation. But I admire Martina and Kevin for inviting that. Okay, so I'll begin. So welcome everyone to the Empathy Circle. My name is Shannon. The Empathy Circle is a great opportunity for us to kind of say what's on our minds and for us to practice active listening as a group. In this circle, there's going to be a speaker that speaks for 3 minutes, and there's going to be another person that serves as the active listener for that time. And as the active listener, it's important that you reflect back precisely what the speaker is saying. And that might require asking the speaker to pause if they're not already, and kind of reflecting back in chunks what you're hearing. Meanwhile, there'll be 2 other participants that are going to be silent listeners. And so, or I guess 3 other participants in this group that are silent listeners. When you're done active listening, when the active listener is done, they can then start speaking, and they can choose their active listener. And the only rule is that, or the only request is that you not choose the same person that was just speaking to you as your active listener. And some people find it helpful to take notes, but it's not a requirement as active listeners. So are there any questions about the process before I say the topic? Okay. So as for the topic, if you could just say kind of what's most alive for you in this moment, what's most on your mind, and I'll serve as the active listener first. So who would like to go first as the speaker?
I guess I'll speak. So.
Okay, great. So I'll make sure I'm timing, and you can feel free to go right now.
Okay, I guess what's most allows me, I spoke on this earlier in reference to, I guess, COVID, the variant, to how people are responding to it, and not political, but in employment and government, as far as the work setting. You know, in reference to you're hearing more and more about the mandatory, and how that's going to affect children going back to school, as well as everyone going back to a full setting. I'll pause there.
Thank you. So what I hear you saying is that what's most alive for you is what you were speaking about earlier today, and that you're thinking about this new COVID variant and how it's going to affect people specifically with going back to work in the work setting, and especially with regard to like the mandatory vaccines that are going to be maybe rolling out in a lot of settings.
Yeah, so I guess in my field of work, I wonder how is that going to affect the patients that we work with this not interruption, but again, a more powerful change that's happening at the organizational level, that, you know, some people are agreeing with it, but then those voices that are not, what is the ripple effect? And I'm probably putting too much into the future, and I study this day, as I'm always being told, work through the process, but it seems to be a lot to think about, and people's livelihood and jobs. And you know, I think about the stimulus is changing, money be changing at the same time in reference to what release is out there for individuals. And now this, you know, we went from totally just go out, be happy, enjoy everybody, don't need a mask. Now it's like across different areas, put your mask back on, and we're going to go back inside because summer's almost over.
Okay, so you said a lot.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, but I'll do my best to reflect what you said, so that you're going back to talking about being at work, and you're specifically concerned about how this is going to affect patients like, because there's so much change to adapt to, and some people might agree to the changes that are taking place, but other people don't agree. And so how's that going to impact, you're wondering, like, how's that going to impact the patients? So I sense a worry, and that you suspect it's going to ripple out. And because the people themselves, you're saying, they have a ton to think about and a ton to adapt to.
Right. I get this because I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, it's just the long-term effects going into the new year, going in the variant. And there's so many opinions. And again, I look at the bottom line with working with the children, you know, who's going to be affected most in reference to we've been out a whole year with that learning curve that has changed across so many arenas, from even that socialization, and now we're back, or ready to go back, and it seems like it has not been a gentle push.
This doesn't feel gentle, the return to going back into work. It feels like there's been a lot of this change has affected people in a lot of ways in their socialization and everything. And so you suspect, you know, there's people are going to be impacted, and kind of trying to anticipate that.
Yes. I feel fully heard. I can see my time.
Awesome. Glad to hear that you feel heard. So then I will speak, and Edwin, can you be my listener?
Yep, listening.
So get my time. Well, I mean, it's a lot to think about in these empathy circles, hearing so many different perspectives on some pretty hot topics that I think are on everyone's minds.
Yeah, so there's a lot of hot topics coming up that are on people's minds, and I think you're saying it's interesting to hear that, or?
Yeah, interesting from the perspective of it being very thought-provoking. And sometimes when it's my turn to speak, I feel like, you know, like I feel like I haven't had the chance to kind of process what's been said. So that can be challenging to switch sets, I guess.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of things coming up, and you've been focusing on that, and it's hard to sort of, sounds like, connect with your own ideas and what you're wanting to talk about. And so it's hard to switch from the listening to the speaking role.
Yeah. And so it's a really helpful practice, because that's such an important skill when you're in groups of people. Maybe for that reason, I've always been sort of a one-on-one type of person, because it can be a little overstimulating, not in a bad way, you know, at all, to hear from so many people at once.
So that you usually try to speak one-on-one with someone else, and then you can sort of ground yourself. But maybe it's a good practice, the empathy circle for groups, to how to be in a group, to be able to make that switch from listening to speaking. Good practice, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I feel very heard by that. I think part of the reason that I'm having the reaction right now is because what Kevin was talking about is also very much on my mind in my daily life. And so it kind of gets at something that's just personally very salient for me, and everything that I and my coworkers will have to consider about going back, and what are the conditions necessary to go back to in person. And there's a lot of anxiety around that for everyone. So including me. So.
Yeah, so what Kevin was saying really relates to you. It's like going from, going back to work, and all the transitions what needs to be done. There's a lot of anxiety coming up. So it's bringing up a lot of that anxiety too for what's for you.
Yeah. And I'll just say real quickly, because I think my time's just about up in a minute, is just that I think that's a valuable reflection for me to carry forward, that anxiety can make it difficult to reflect, and something I've always known, but I think that's valuable to remember, to check in.
So you just want to remember and sort of check in that if you feel anxious, it's hard to do reflections and just listen, and maybe even speak. It's just
Exactly.
anxiety blocks a lot of things, a lot of, yeah.
Yep, that's exactly, and I feel very heard. Thank you.
Okay. I guess it's my
Yeah.
turn. I'll speak to Martina. So what's alive for me, I'd made a note about, I was still sitting with Graham's comments about his empathy buddy call with someone and how that person was asking a lot of questions. So I'd made a note about that, and it just been sort of sitting with me.
So what's coming to your mind right now is Graham's buddy call and how the person was asking all the questions.
Mm-hmm. Because the empathy buddy call is supposed to be about empathic listening. So it's not supposed to be like a question, you know, kind of a question answer per se. It's supposed to be, you know, one person sharing like, hey, how's the course going for you? Or sort of what's alive for you? And the other person doing empathic listening. So if somebody's just sitting there doing a lot of questioning of the other person, it's sort of is breaking the intention of the empathy buddy call.
Yeah, so the whole point of the buddy call is to take turns sharing and then being the active listener. And so if the person is just constantly asking questions, that sort of defeats the whole purpose of that buddy call.
Yeah, they can ask questions, but you just reflect the questions. It's like, oh, I hear you're really curious about this, or I hear you're really curious about that, and you really want to know this, you want to know about my life. Tell, you know, so you just reflect the question. You don't like answer the question, you just reflect it until it's your turn. So
yeah, if you were the listener in that area, you would just be reflecting back every single question. Like, I heard you say, this is your question, and this is your question. So basically the listener, the speaker would hear all their questions back again.
yeah, and then when it's your turn, you can answer them or not. And there's the empathy buddy call is it's an important sort of a skill to learn, because if you're facilitating conflict type empathy circles, before you even go into those circles, you want to have it's good to have an empathy buddy call with someone, because that'll help sort of regulate your anxiety. You know, Shannon's talking about anxiety, Kevin is talking about anxiety. So when you go into those environments, you're bringing that anxiety in. But if you can have an empathy buddy call where you get 15 minutes or half an hour, say, hey, I'm feeling really anxious about doing this empathy cafe or circle. And it's like the whole thing might blow up. There's a lot of conflict. And then the person reflects back. It helps reduce that anxiety. And it supports you in sort of like whatever circle you're going to be doing. Yeah, so it's supportive for that.
So the whole purpose of the buddy call is to help lower people's anxieties in order to facilitate empathy circles or empathy cafes. It just provides a lot of practice to help you reduce your anxiety that you may have, so that when the time comes to really do an empathy circle, you won't have you'll be more comfortable being in that role.
Yeah, kind of grounded. You'll feel more grounded. And it's also good for the post, like after one, you know, you've had a lot of anxiety, or, you know, a lot of energy has kind of come up. Oh, I see my time's up. But if you do it afterwards, then that helps ground you as well. So the empathy buddy call is a real grounding sort of a practice.
So the empathy buddy can also be done after an empathy circle if you're facilitating one, because it can help ground you in your practice.
I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Great. Martina, do you want to?
Yes. Graham, would you be my listener, please?
Yes, my pleasure, Martina. Thank you.
So it's interesting, the topic of anxiety. I have this experience sometimes where I have anxiety when I'm in social situations or these Zoom calls, or when I'm teaching a class on Zoom.
Martina, you chose to stick with the topic or follow the current topic of anxiety. and you get outbreaks of anxiety when you're, for example, in Zoom sessions and teaching on Zoom?
Yes, and sometimes I'm actually thinking that it's not my anxiety that I'm feeling, that it's other people. And sometimes I think that the anxiety is coming when there's space being held by others.
Can I hold you there?
Mm-hmm.
One of your observations about the anxiety is that it's not necessarily coming from you, but maybe you're connecting with anxiety expressed from the group, low-level anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You notice also that this kind of arises when there's some space, maybe when there's unspoken space, but it's space anyway.
Yes. So I feel this sometimes when there's people that have been meditating together for a while, or if there's some new meditators and we're all in the Zoom room, I feel it. It seems like it's a lot of, it's like an energy's coming forth. So it's not really anxiety, but it's because I'm not grounded, and that's the anxiety is coming from the ungroundedness.
And you notice this when you're in a meditation space on Zoom, for example, and you notice it particularly when there are new members of your meditation group, and your anxiety level arises, and you're sensing that this is because you're not grounded. You're putting this back to you.
Yes, I think there's just, I'm feeling it in my body. There's some sort of energy transmission going on that I'm feeling. I'm interpreting it as anxiety, but it's just some sort of energy coming through.
You're interpreting this experience as anxiety. You're labeling it as anxiety, but it's more generally an energy which you're describing as anxiety.
Yeah, I actually get physical sensations of shaking and tremors, which, yeah.
Yeah, so this experience expresses itself as shaking and tremors.
Mm-hmm. And I had it in the beginning of this call.
And you had this experience at the beginning of this call.
Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've had it in an empathy circle. And I think I've done maybe 12 empathy circles.
And this is the first time you've had this experience in empathy circles, and you've done about 12 empathy circles.
Yep. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you very much, Martina.
Thank you.
So, Shannon, how do you feel about your experience? And you need to be brief.
Okay. I guess if I should be brief, I felt fine. And there's more to it than that, but overall, I felt fine.
Yeah. Expand on that slightly.
It's interesting. I mean, there was a couple times where I thought I should keep time, then it was very difficult to do it because I wanted to hear what people were saying, or maybe I was trying to hold up and people didn't see. And so I felt very conflicted about that. So it'd be useful to hear kind of what other people do in that situation.
Okay. So there was a situation where you felt conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come back to that. That's lovely.
Sure.
Martina or Kevin?
I thought that it was very effortless, and you did an excellent job explaining in the beginning, very thorough, very calm and centered. And I think that whatever you did for the time was perfect. It didn't seem
cool.
Didn't seem to be in the way of what was being shared.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Kevin?
Yeah, I definitely did what was being said in reference to Martina, that I thought the time was effortless. I did see the time go up a couple of times, but I think I was so interesting in what people were saying too. It's like, okay, I see it, but I want the thought to finish. And so it's like, okay, and you still gave it to get in. I think people jumped in. So I thought it was really great how that kind of worked effortlessly, and your introduction was awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Edwin.
Yeah, everything flowed, smoothly. It was just an enjoyable circle, no challenges, no ruffled feathers. It was just like, oh, let's just get the chance to share and hear everyone. And so it's good. Yeah. So it just went very smoothly.
And thank you, Shannon. I felt likewise that it went smoothly.
Yeah.
And you also have the privilege of going third because by this time the group is self-managing, and it gets so much easier as the group goes by. But I appreciated your brief empathy circle description. That was great. And you talked about being conflicted. Like, for example, you wanted to draw an end to a cycle. But this is where I understand where you were conflicted, where you wanted to draw an end and people were continuing. So you were wondering how to actually engage that little dilemma.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all. That was, that's exactly, I feel very heard by what you just said right there. The only thing I'm wondering is everyone talked about feeling a little bit anxious, and I wonder how much the facilitator has to do, the content, how much does the structure filter down into the content? Just interesting how our conversations evolve through this whole circle. Yeah.
Can I then move this on now to that more common subject? Thank you, Shannon. As a facilitator, the barometer, I have a barometer of the group, and this is very important to me because my objective is that we connect, and the barometer then is at the high level. And I felt that we struggled at times, and I think I'm one of the key people who made it struggle. But then I think we began to gather momentum, even though we were addressing the topic of anxiety. So can I ask you each to very briefly comment, you've got about 10, 15 seconds, on what you felt was the shape of the barometer, the shape of the connection in the group that we sustained.
I don't quite understand the barometer part, but I think people enjoy just being able to share their anxiety. It's a way of releasing it. So yes. I just find it, I have, pent up anxieties, and just because I feel anxious and I feel anxious about the room, right? Which I got to close all the rooms. But it just feels good to be able to share anxiety with others and have it be heard. So, yeah.
Kevin?
I did all that also. It was just a learning experience to see the different aspect of anxiety within without even saying it.
Martina?
No, I have no opinion of this. Unfortunately, I think we had a great, I just don't want to evaluate it, I guess. I just feel like everybody shared, and I felt connected to people. I don't know what to say.
Thank you, Martina. And thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Graham. Okay, we have 3 seconds to closing. Okay, were you doing this part, Kathy? Is this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to take a minute each to just talk about what our insights or learnings were from this past circle. And I'll call on everybody just to make it quicker. And I'll just go first. It was a wonderful circle, lots of learning and fun. So I learned a lot. So thank you all. I was with Francesca, Celine, and Ralph. So I actually wrote everybody's names down so I wouldn't skip anybody because I know that the windows shift. So I'm going to start with Raid.
Hey, my experience was fun. I asked for the highest. So Bill gave me the dancing. He asked me about interrupted and didn't even talk to me. He talked to the fish behind me. Overall, it was a pleasant experience. It was something that most probably I would have faced in real life. So I thank you, Bill. My colleagues were also extremely kind, and we opened up to one another. It was a great experience learning from each other's experiences and turns. So thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, Raid. So I'm going to go to Tiffany next and then to Stephen.
Tiffany, did you say?
Tiffany.
Okay. This was the worst experience of my life. Like, they had people chatting things inappropriately. Kids was in the background. Like I've never seen anything like this. I was so overwhelmed. I'm so glad we were acting, but so I had a group of several people. It was really a challenge, but I'm glad I went through this because I thought the only challenge would be technology, and that's not true. There are other challenges, interpersonal. So I learned a lot on today.
Thank you, Tiffany. So Stephen and then Shannon.
It was nerve-wracking, I'll tell you. When it was my turn to facilitate, I just had to say, please do a 0. Let's just have an empathy circle here for a minute, which was great. I enjoyed how everyone got to ask for what they wanted and needed, myself included. And there were a couple moments where I just enjoyed being a little bit stiller and just looking at people's faces and appreciating people on the screen with me. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Stephen. So Shannon and then Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely. Guess the thing that's most alive for me is I do feel grateful again for just to be part of an empathy circle. And I was particularly struck by realizing that there's value in sharing in kind of like when a circle kind of comes together in agreement or resonance around a certain feeling, even if that feeling isn't positive, and that even if it's shared anxiety about the state of the world, like it can be there's something healing in that, even though it's hard. So yeah, so this was really useful and I appreciate being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. So Jackie and then Martina.
That was really amazing. Yeah, it was. I'm very appreciative. Al-Jazzy basically said she didn't like what I did at all, and that was, yeah. I'm amazed at how speaking truth, I was able to take it in, but how informative and how helpful it can be. So I think I was a bit too eager in my intervention as a facilitator. But so much learning. I really appreciate the group. Thank you so much, all of you. It was, I think I learned really a lot. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
to
Jackie.
all of you. The 4, we felt lots of love, I think. It was beautiful.
Yes.
So Martina and then Jazzy.
I enjoyed our group today, and yeah, I chose a 3 and I didn't get a very difficult challenge, which was actually fine for me because my main challenges, I think from here on out, are going to be my inner myself, like what's going on in my mind. And that's something that you really can't make something happen to somebody. And just noticing, this whole process for me has been noticing, like the whole empathy circle thing, noticing my reactions to things and my thoughts about things, and just, yeah, it's very interesting. And just, so that's my main challenge in this. So I'll leave it.
Thank you, Martina. So Jazzy and then Linda.
So today's circle was different. I realized that, but maybe because it's a Zoom circle, not a real life circle, but I'm not that I don't get distracted easily. I chose a low challenge, and Russia tested me during when I was the facilitator, but I wasn't distracted by her message, even though I read the message. Even if someone was doing something in the background, I wasn't distracted by that. I get distracted if someone is speaking or not reflecting correctly. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Jazzy. So Linda and Kevin.
Okay, Rashama, I can tear up anybody's name, so I apologize. I asked for a level 3. She gave me a level 3. It was difficult, and I can see it happening. So I appreciate that, because I know I need to work on my, they kept saying how stern I was. I need to be softer. And it made me think too, when you have a person that just will not conform to the group, you know, I was to the point of, and even my body language, I started doing like this because that's all I wanted to hit her, because I was threatening to just kick her out. But it was good, and I can appreciate that because I can see it happening. I saw different styles with the introductions, and I those were some takeaways for me. And I noticed one thing about the interruptions, and that's what I was thinking. When the person is speaking, it's they're on stage, it's their turn. As a facilitator, I may see a distraction, but if it's not distracting the speaker, you know, I would probably let it go. That's just me, because I had to think about that. How would, to handle it.
Great. Thank you, Linda. So Kevin and then Ralph.
I guess all I can say is it was very, like every circle, it was a rewarding experience. Just, without the whole challenges, just trusting the process. And with everyone who's in the group. So ultimately it was just a rewarding experience.
Thank you, Kevin. So Ralph and then Francesca.
There was an extra level in this exchange, and that level was recognizing, accepting, and working with our different styles. And after a point, you were in the group, Kathy, Francesca, and Celine. And after a while, something in me cut through the styles, and that's just how it is. And to get to the essence of the facilitation. So we got to this great point again of group mind, group spirit that could have continued indefinitely. I just want to point out to Jackie, your house is not on fire, is it? Somebody has to say something. I saw smoke, I thought. All right.
Thank you, Ralph. So Francesca and then Rasha.
Yes, so I really appreciated Celine's mock challenges. I really got a kick out of how some of the things that she came up with. I just really felt, a ditto with what Ralph was saying, is that I was noticing different facilitation styles, right? And different ways of navigating through the process. And, you know, again, acknowledging and understanding that each person's gonna hold space their own way, you know, and that the process in and of itself is a forgiving process. And the essence of what we're trying to do here is all that really matters, you know, and that each one of us does it in the way that feels comfortable for us, you know. And it's really interesting because again, it's cultivating empathy and understanding that we're also uniquely different and how we would respond to circumstances that come up. So I thought that was really neat. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Rosh and then Celine.
Hi. So we began with a very high, I mean, Linda was the first one to facilitate and she asked for a very high level of challenge. And so we immediately went into this, you know, very, and so yeah. And so, but what happened because of that is even as a facilitator, I kind of, obviously when things are really difficult in a group, the energy kind of goes down, and that affected me as well. Even though all of us knew that we were all acting, in fact, even while I was doing a high level of, you know, challenge, I remember how Aljazi and Jackie were kind of smiling like at times because they couldn't hold it and they could feel that I was just acting. But somehow the energy kind of came down. And so I struggled a little bit today to kind of, you know, just because I really didn't want to scar anybody. Because I remember way back when I was during my first experience with challenges, I remember how much it had kind of affected me and how low I felt while I got out of the session that day. So, but yeah, but because of that, I also made sure there was a good enough time to debrief so that, you know, we could just like clear out any sort of things that we wanted to say to each other. So that kind of really helped. Yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
So Celine and then Graham.
Well, I loved our circle. I thought there was brilliance and I learned a lot. And I'm seeing that I may be training to facilitate, but I'm actually an expert on giving challenges, interrupting. I'm great at it. I love it, actually. So that's something I'm going to have to do some, get somebody to listen to me about that. And I love the beauty of the intention and care from everybody in the circle. It's very moving and complete.
Celine. So Graham and then Michelle.
Thank you, Kathy. Today was really quite an experience. I think the biggest challenge in the group was me today. And I apologize to all the participants for not providing challenges as you'd actually asked. But we'll have to sort of work that one out for next time. Maybe I can take some tuition off Celine. Anyway, so for me, there's always a conflict between my goal is to connect and the need is to connect. So I can't do disruptive work, not deliberately anyway. So that's that point. The other really interesting thing was that there was one feeling which seemed to wend its way through the group, through the whole session, and that was anxiety. And like Shannon says, it was quite uncomfortable, but it was there, you know? And the thing to learn for me is how to sit with that. And if necessary, how to steer the group out of it, if necessary. But nonetheless, the main thing is how do you sit with it? The other thing for me is that there was a palpable level of care amongst all of us. And so for whatever reason, I could feel that. And I didn't know quite which way that was going, but care was nonetheless there. And I thank Kevin, Martina, Shannon, and Edwin for the experience of the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So let's finish up with Michelle, then Bill, and then Edwin.
Oh, thanks so much, Kathy. Yeah, I find like week 3 always the most challenging. It's the one that brings the most growth, because in that edge of challenge, like it brings growth, but growth is uncomfortable for me anyway. I just find week 3 so hard because of all of the challenges. And I find that it really mixes up. Like I'm quite attached to that space of empathy. It just feels so gorgeous. So just having to mix that up feels like it throws things around. And it was really gorgeous to see, you know, we had Bill like introduced like in a really playful way, like lots of like fun challenges for us, but also introduced this topic of Aikido for us, which is like, how do you, it's like in life when a challenge is thrown to you, how do you defend in the least violent way possible? And once that's handled, that challenge is handled, then stop and just kind of come back into center. And it was really profound, because literally moments later, we had one of our facilitators who felt that she really struggled with these, like a lot of challenges at the same time, was literally like doing the flow, like she was just really handling them in this most beautiful way. It was stunning to watch, it was beautiful. And then I was really grateful at the end that our final facilitator brought us back into this like just empathy space, and just noticing the contrast between them two things. It was like, oh, you know, it's really, really, really nourishing for the heart. So I was really grateful to all of our facilitators and to our trainer as well for like what was just like a huge amount of growth in a few hours. It was stunning. Thanks.
I go? Okay. All right. Yeah, I just have a great appreciation for everybody in the circle and how they dealt with their own challenges. There were not just challenges that I gave. But you know, they dealt with their own challenges and how dedicated and things like that. And I just have a great appreciation for that. They weren't feeling well, or they did this, or there were other things. And you know, we're gonna get this done. And so I just want to express my appreciation for that. It's very meaningful for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Edwin?
Yeah, I always learn from every person in the circle, or just it's like, I just feel like everybody's learning from everyone else, right? There's not like one teacher. It's like just you kind of learn how to do the presentation from others. You learn how to deal with challenges from others. So there's a real feeling of growth there. I was not the person that gave challenges, and I felt very disappointed, because giving the challenges, I can see Celine and Bill, their eyes light up with, oh, I got to give challenges, because there's sort of this alter ego that comes up, right? You're always trying to be a nice guy, and here you can be really nasty. So it's a lot of fun to give challenges for a lot of people like myself. I did kind of come up with an idea of, sometimes people forget, or even the facilitators, the room facilitators forget to ask for challenges, you know, what challenge level. So I just made up a little sign. What challenge would you like? You know, so just something to, I just thought that was a good idea. So yeah, there's a lot more, but I'll just hold it.
So who's next? Who do I turn it over to?
Oh, Francesca or Celine? Francesca, did you feel okay doing the next part? Or you're muted, or did you want Celine, because we didn't have a clear assignment here. Celine was going to do it, but then you were the backup.
I can do it. I'm just
okay, great.
Actually, you know what? I don't have the script up. So why don't, Celine, if you have the script up, go ahead.
Sure. So any final trainer comments before we close?
Bill's down there. So, Bill's got his hands up.
Yeah, just generally, just a tip is that, again, in my work in special education, we try to avoid what we call a power struggle. And that's when, as a facilitator, you have a kind of quasi, it's really unclear, it's difficult position of authority. And so one of the times when people are just not accepting the circle, or they're not following the rules or something like that, it's I try to make the point that it's not me, Bill, who's saying no or setting the limit, but it's actually the parameters of the circle. And so it's not that. So if you didn't like it, it's not the right time for you, or you can come back another time, or things like that. And so you just kind of say, I'm just trying to show you this process, and I'm doing the best I can to do that, but it's nothing personal. So instead of, an interpersonal power struggle, you just make it like, well, the structure is not working for you today. Doesn't mean you're not empathic, doesn't mean you're not a nicer person, but, and we welcome you to come back when you're ready to, follow the rules or whatever. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, a comment, Celine?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to put in the Empathy Circle Facilitation Catalog. That's the challenges, and it was in the email. Maybe you didn't see it. If you didn't, that is the link to it, and that is a whole list of challenges. You can go through those, and I started creating a challenges catalog of comments about each, and that's sort of a work in progress. And the idea is to create this catalog where there'll be the challenge, there'll be comments about it, and even like little video clips, how to address each one. So some tips. So anyway, it's a work in progress, long-term project. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. So what we did in this session, to summarize, is we practiced introducing the empathy circle process, and everybody who wanted to had a chance to facilitate a short empathy circle and to get feedback for both of these, and debrief at the end of it. Got to have some challenges if you wanted them. And next week, we will also practice, but without the introduction, without the how-to, and you can ask for challenges if you want them, and at whatever level. So assignments, you will receive an email to give feedback on this session. We have a survey each time. The link will also be in the chat, and you will be given an empathy buddy that you can pair up with and have a conversation. And if you can, try to facilitate an empathy circle with family, friends, people at work, whatever, or your neighborhood. So those are the preparation for next week. And now we can post one feeling that we have as a result of being here today in the chat. Let's see. And I'm having a hard time getting back to that screen. Edwin,
Can I
would
read
you?
some of them? Sure. I
Yes,
see
please.
appreciation, feel a bit distracted, energized, thoughtful, present, happy, open-hearted, peaceful and grateful, present, distracted but satisfied, appreciation, acceptance.
So I'm going to put relaxed because I took a breath, my first one in 2 hours. And now we finish with jazz hands, everybody.
See you next week.
Have a good week,
Check for your
everybody.
empathy buddies. Bye for now.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.